Welcome. It's our second panel of London Fashion Week, but it's our first panel from the studio because yesterday for the JW Anderson panel we were off at the ICA at the Old Selfridges Hotel, but today we're back in the comfort of our studio and we're going to be talking about Mary Katrantzous's collection. Very aptly given Show Studio's penchant for having lots of different things going on at the same time, we've also got a wonderful illustrator, Valerie Servais, who's illustrating from the corner of the studio. I think she's got her headphones in, and she's sitting on David Hockney's stool drawing the collections as we speak, but we're going to be talking about the collections with a wonderful set of panellists, but I'll let you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Camilla Morton and I'm a fashion writer.
Cyprian Decoteau, fashion aficionado and soon-to-be designer.
I'm Amarpaul Kalirai and I'm a photographer.
And I'm Marion Hume and I'm a reporter.
What have we been enjoying of London Fashion Week so far? Camilla, you've been out and about a bit today. What's caught your eye?
Well, today I've kind of been doing Shoes Sunday because I've done all the exhibition stands, and I went to Manolo Blahnik's presentation and Sophia Webster had a presentation at the Topshop Unique venue. And today I was sort of on the hunt for accessories, so it's quite interesting to step away from the catwalks every now and then and see what accessories are happening as well, because there's Stephen Jones has his hedonism exhibitors, and you know there's a lot of different things going on within the exhibition stands, and I think that buyers, you know, they don't just come and look to pick up big ready-to-wear collections, there are all the other elements as well.
And also it's interesting that you mentioned shoes, because Mary Katrantzous's collection today is going to be inspired by shoes, but we'll chat a little bit more generally before we have a look at what she's done. I'm interested that you talk about accessories though, because that seems to be what sort of a huge part of what London's becoming known for, some of these amazing young jewellers, amazing young footwear designers. Have you guys picked up on that this season? Has there been anything that's, like Dominic Jones had his presentation today as well. Have you guys been out and about?
No, I haven't. I haven't. But two collections so far that have stood out for me were Peter Jensen and Sibling, of course. Peter Jensen's always got a rather quirky take on clothes, and this season there was a synthesis of a commercial bent and the clothes still maintaining that quirkiness. Sibling, of course, I think their women's wear collection also too sort of graduated quite leaps and bounds. One of the things I think I've been thinking this season will be a season where people will be settling into a groove. The past couple of seasons there's been so much hype and hoopla. New York, of course, proved to be rather dull. Nothing exciting.
No change from usual.
Yeah, well, no change from usual, but then they will constantly argue it's the notion of American sportswear and they have to sell to Middle America. But what I looked at on the first day of London Fashion Week, we had a first-time young designer, JJ Lee, and I think her collection stood up so much better to more than everything we saw at New York. And you kind of think, London again, we've got this idea, this notion of creativity and marketability that the rest of the world is finally catching on to. I don't think it's anything other than the world is finally catching on to you do not need to wear a three-piece suit or a jacket and a skirt suit in order to go to work to declare your influence and your superiority. There are so many other ways, and tying back into accessories have always been an incredibly important means by which you can establish and delineate your eccentricity or your individuality.
Would you agree with that, Marion? Do you think that London's sort of forcing the other fashion cities to sort of up their game a little bit? Because
I think it always has. You know, New York can say what it likes. I mean, I wasn't there this time, so I shouldn't comment, but of course I will. It's always quite dull compared to London. It is. And there is this great thing that America thinks that because if New York's excited, the rest of the world is excited. Well, sometimes we're not. And actually in London, I think if people come and they enjoy the shows or go to the accessories presentation, you basically have to be dead not to be excited. I mean, there's so much, and whether you love things or hate things, it's a very provocative city in terms of fashion. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, the show that we're going to talk about, I have no idea what she's going to do. I love that about London, and I really don't think you get that anywhere else. You know, Paris, there are thrills and treats, but for me, London is always the one that it shocks me, and that's the best thing. And I've lost count of how many years I've been doing London. It's a long time, and I still go, oh, you know, show me something, and I never know what I'm gonna get, which I love about it.
Do you think that's because of all the colleges we have here, because it feels like such a city for young people? Do you find that, Paul, as a young creative working here, it feels like a very sort of open environment to trying something new, to sort of establishing yourself in fashion?
Yeah, I feel like all of the designers that really are making a mark in London are all young designers, and some of the ones that are older designers working in London, they're kind of filling a different market altogether, which isn't so representative of London. New York kind of is...
Am I allowed to plough in there? Because I've just come from Vivienne Westwood, and you know, Vivienne is 70, but she's actually 21. And you know, she just showed another phenomenal show where she combined, I think, the things that are just so important about London, which is that great creativity, but also an enormous social conscience, which is kind of what we're seeing with the young designers. But sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think that's a really valid point, though. I kind of want to pick up and ask you a bit more about that, because I do agree that I think if you look at the kind of collections perhaps that get the most press and come to represent London Fashion Week, it is your Simone Rocha, your JW Anderson, your Mary Katrantzou, your Roxanne Ilinchik, and they are, as you say, young designers, and as I agree, Vivienne West was fantastic, but the John Rochers on the schedule
and Richard Nicol and Jonathan Saunders, all designers who are doing amazing things, they don't get as much press. And I think it's because
it's a sad day when Richard Nicol is an older designer.
We all too.
Sorry, no, I'll let you continue what you were going to say.
Well, yeah, he's not like an older designer or whatever, but I think Mary Katrantzou and Simone Rocha and
the super young ones.
Yeah, they're what London is creating and helping create.
One of the things I'd like to think, and you know, I think New York is a city of immigrants, just like London. But the thing about New York and American immigrants, you have to assimilate into American culture and American society. London allows immigrants to maintain their individuality and to respect your motherland and still have ties to it and still be British. And I think it's one of the things that we constantly forget that makes London exciting. There are new people coming in here every year and who still do not lose fact that they're from Eritrea, they're from Poland, they're from China, whatever.
Do you think people think of Mary as a Greek designer? I think people talk about Mary as a London designer.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making. You become a Londoner, but wait, don't forget the American ideal is to throw off your baggage from the mother country and become American, right? I mean, London isn't that. You can become a Londoner because when you come to England, you don't go to Durham, let's just say, other cities. You come to a dynamic city that is constantly changing and evolving, and you've got to keep pace with that. And I think it's what fashion does more so than any other art form. It's got its finger on the pulse of the energy, of the change, of the flux that's continuing to happen in London, more so than any other city. And hence the reason fashion, that outward expression of inner turmoil, angst, social consciousness, it's the means by which.
I'm really glad you said that point about angst, because that's actually one of my questions. One thing that I think is brilliant about Mary is she's made optimism fashionable, because her stuff isn't angsty.
No.
It's not light, it's intelligent, but it's optimistic, it's bright, and it's cheerful. And I think if you also look at something like Sibling, you know, Sibling can be subversive, it can be incredibly punkish, but there seems to be this vogue for the upbeat. Where's that come from, Camilla?
Well, I think what I was going to say is I didn't think New York was as bad as all that, and I actually think that the thing that I like about London, whether it's Vivienne or Sibling or Mary, is that I think because we've got such strong colleges here, we all we keep that sense of youth and the sort of that kind of devil-may-care attitude where you can just go out and give it a try. And I think that, you know, Sid and Cos and Joe at Sibling, like, they are a gang and they have great fun together. Like Luella and Katie will have great fun at Mark by Mark, and I think it's that sense of adventure that is something that really defines London.
But I think there was a period where London felt like it was a sense of sort of,
I think we were
moodiness
trying
and dark
to be
that
too
felt
grown
cool.
up, and we got all a bit lost under
I
a
think
grey
it's a general
cloud.
malaise that London is beginning to reflect. I think it's time to stop the navel gazing, the introspection. I mean, the thing about London, as we all know, when you hang out with everybody, as we do, everybody's up for always a laugh and having a good time. And I think probably because there's an optimism to your business feeling, if there's a contradiction in terms to that, there is a thing. I mean, you know, I went to the Burnstock Spears talk of the V&A, and they'd been in business for 30 years, and yet they're still producing really exciting, dynamic work. Nothing about them seems to be phased by it at all. And you kind of think, God, after 30 years, all the knots and everything, to still to have it. And I think that's what London engenders. And I think, yes, we've got a new generation of designers coming through who sense optimism because you've got different outlets, different support networks, different sponsorship deals, that if you're smart, you're canny, and your collection is saleable.
Yeah. But I don't think the funds come from people feeling. No. I think there's amazing support, but I think young designers still have an incredibly tough time. If you look at someone like Sibling, yes, they're producing incredibly exciting, dynamic collections, but they're really
enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Marion and I went to shows many times, and I think, don't you think that it's the we'll give it a try and see what happens attitude that's something that makes it fun?
Even though here, of course, it's hard. I mean, going into any business when you're in your early 20s is hard, and it takes that enormous strength of going, I actually can jump off this bridge and there will be a parachute. All of that is hard. But let's put it in context. It's nowhere near as hard as if you were, let's say, Italian. Yes. And you have these mighty greats in Italy who have dominated for years. And so for the younger lot to break through in Italy is much, much harder than here. And they have to fight for that space on the schedule. London Fashion Week and the organisers of it have always embraced the new, and it's always been exciting. And I'm not actually sure we ever did have a dark introspective period, because we were always going out having fun as well. So,
and also Central St Martin's MA is allowed to be on the London schedule. You know, I think London has a sense of bravado. I think that sort of keeps it fun.
And that building now, you know, the Central St Martin's building,
is
extraordinary as a place to have shows. I was just at Paul Smith there earlier, and so to see this, you know, establishment figure, Sir Paul Smith and Central St Martin's, wonderful.
Yeah.
Paul, do you notice when because you shoot for a lot of the kind of cool style mags, do you notice that kind of, do you only want to use stuff from London? Do you always want to create pictures that get across that kind of excitement within the collections? Because if you look at things like, you know, Ryan Lowe, Sibling that we've talked about, is that what you try and do with your pictures, get across energy?
Well, I don't think I try and focus on only using London designers at all, but I do think a lot of the really interesting pieces kind of do come from London, and I think a lot of designers, the young designers here, they are making these pieces that aren't so much, like you said, business orientated or thinking about the wider picture of what people are going to buy, what people are going to wear. They're thinking creatively, they're thinking from their head and getting that onto a body.
So they're like a stylist saviours, then you can just pick a really good London piece and it'll lift up your
It
picture.
just speaks to you, it shouts. I mean, you know, James Long the other day was saying, you know, it was the ultimate validation of his divine sweatshirt that Rick Owens wore to his party. You know, you kind of think, yes, bring it on. And it's always been the case. There has been a period of, I would challenge you on that, Marion, of deep, dark introspection, and you know, there were designers who needed to plumb those depths, because where there's light, there's darkness, and where there's darkness. So I would like to think we've never operated on just a one-dimensional sort of bright, happy, cheery thing, but we needed to do that, and I think we are going through that period of optimism right now, and hopefully another period, because remember we're living in really cathartic, difficult times. So the clothes will have to be more upbeat. Those dark, introspective, sober clothes was when money was no object. And we kind of thought, what's happening here? So it always works on that level, the yin and the yang. And because hopefully these dark, gloomy, unsettling days will one day pass, and we'd have another generation of kids who would sort of say, wow, we've had it so good. Remember, those dark moments were in a relative, period of economic buoyancy, no wars, everything like that, and everybody was doing dark. It wasn't just the Belgian 7 nor the Japanese. We had Helmut Lang as well. Everybody was doing dark. Then McQueen came on, Tristan Weber. All of these people were doing dark, introspective clothes. So that now, when the current climate is one of near tragedy, tragedy on a really remarkable scale, we can do nothing but, as designers, create clothes to lift the mood.
Do you agree with that, Camilla?
Not totally.
Give me your
Not
take.
totally, because I think everything can be, you can view the cup as half empty, half full, and you can go into something and see it as a negative situation or a positive situation. And I think, we've gone through buoyant economic times and down economic times, but it's never sort of short of creativity. And I think, sometimes the most creative things come from when you have no money, and I think, sometimes we try, and I think sometimes London tries to be another city, but it's not Milan, it's not New York, it's not Paris, and I think each city has its own unique purpose, and I think that London is the one where it's sort of feeding the unknown, because it will give it a try, and I think if you look at, as Marion was saying, if you look at New York, you have the big houses. If you look at Italy, you have Armani's and very established houses. If you look at London heroes, they are the sort of the pirates and the mavericks, and I think that is quite exciting. And whether it was a sort of like a dark inspiration or a light inspiration, I think it's that, we're just going to give it a shot, that is quite a positive thing. But anyway, let's get on to current
I was going to say, let's
collections.
talk about Mary. Why is Mary so cool? Why is she so great? Paul, why do young people love Mary so much? Young fashion kids.
I think Mary's, her clothing, the reason it speaks to me, I don't want to speak for anyone else, I guess, but it speaks to me because everything is so visual, and I'm taken away into a whole nother story, a whole nother place when I look at one of her dresses from past seasons. I don't know what it looks like this season, we'll see. But I love that one dress can tell me a whole story, and I can make up so many variations of what that story is trying to tell just by looking at one piece.
Is that just in the print, or is that also in the texture?
I think for me, a lot of it is in the print. I mean, her dresses for me are more about structure and print. Yeah, I don't see so much texture always, but
well, I think that's quite interesting that you say, because last season she tried to do something a bit more textural, and it was more. But I think it's interesting that print, because I think she's always going to be about print, and she's kind of really accepting of that. But it's interesting to see her try and move away from that. What did you think of last season, that move away from the kind of the story print, which I think is a really lovely way of saying it, because that's what she does do. Each dress is a kind of a little tale. You want to go up and see what's going on. But what have you thought of this kind of move away from that?
But I think each collection should be judged season by season. I think, like she does things thematically, I think that it's quite interesting to see how it sort of, it changes and tells a different story through a different collection. I think the thing that I always think about Mary is it's a bit like when gifts started to move, or you went from the internet and you went from just looking at still runway shots to moving shots, or the gifts started to move, or then you started to get video. And I think she's quite a sort of, it's almost like you've gone from a black and white film to a colour film. She's sort of such a splash of colour, and I think that that's quite a sort of joyful thing, because it's so easy to just sort of splash yourself in one monotone, and I think she sort of dares to make print not too her prints are very hectic, but she makes it seem like it's a sort of everyday thing to tell a story in that many details. Would you agree?
I was a fan of the last collection. I've been a fan of her prints, but I thought in the past she never reconciled the shapes, her silhouette, to the strength of her prints.
But do you think part of that is her popularity? Because I wonder if part of that comes from the fact that her sort of jersey print dresses sell so well. So you see a lot of the simple shapes. When actually, if you look at the showpieces, the textures and shapes are amazing. But I think when we see it on Fashion Girls, it's a lot of those jersey dresses. So I think you come to think of her even more about print than perhaps she'd like from her runway shows.
Yeah, I just liked the last seasons. I mean, which is fortuitous because I'm here again talking about Mary Katrantzou. So I'm kind of glad that I liked her then, and I'm waiting to see if I will like her now, if I will mark her down, or just sort of say yes, continue, long may you last, kind of thing.
When you say long may she last, I think that's one of the things that's amazing about Mary. She really is a symbol of how she's not a London designer in many ways. She's got this incredible international business. Like, she is stocked all over the world, and a lot of her biggest sort of sellers are in sort of different countries, because women of all different nationalities really love what she does. Do you notice, when you spend time in Australia, do you notice women out there?
Yeah, she was in Australia actually recently. She was talking in Melbourne, and it just works in Australia. I mean, while we're here, we talk about London designers, but actually these designers do go out and they take on the world. And Mary's great thing is right from the very beginning, she had such a strong identity, and that's really unusual. That right from the very beginning, what we're going to see is I'm sure directly related to that beginning point, that her sense of print and this enormous technical skill, that when we're seeing things coming down the runway, you can't really appreciate, I think, when something's moving towards you, how technically adept she is. And also that's what the customer is responding to, that when you do prints well, it is optimism, it is celebration. When you do prints badly, God, they're awful. And
that's a really good point.
She does it so well that she set the bar so high, and also been hugely influential on other designers.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that's why women love her? Because it never feels like the print is wearing them, which when you do something so loud, I think that's an incredible strength, that it never looks like it's a walking print. I don't know how she does that.
The only person I can kind of think to compare her to is really when Diane von Furstenberg started. And my first comment here being a bit down on America, but then Diane von Furstenberg, who was absolutely revolutionary in the way that she changed the dress for women, how she changed the way women wear print, and that way that it's instantly recognizable. This is instantly recognizable, and yet you don't feel that you're kind of wearing a designer in a very sort of heavy way. It's like you're wearing something that you like. And your point on the joy and optimism, I'm sure if you put on something by Mary in the morning, you're just kind of expecting you're going to have a great day. And those very simple things about fashion, when fashion actually becomes the clothes that we wear rather than big philosophical thoughts, that's actually when fashion really works. If you reach into the wardrobe in the morning and you go, yeah, I'm going to wear that, and you sort of slightly skip out of your house. I've never worn anything by Mary, but I imagined...
You're really selling it to me now.
I'm hearing before I put on my makeup. I say a little prayer for you.
I think it's important as well that we mentioned last season, because as much as we talked about her optimism, for me last season, whether people liked it or not, I think it was about her saying, look, I'm not just print, I'm an incredibly skilled designer when it comes to texture, when it comes to fabric, when it comes to silhouette. So I think I wanted to talk about it just a little bit, because I feel like she's moving in a new direction, not a new direction, I feel like she's forcing us to look at a direction she's always been in. And I think many people saw that as a new direction. But should we have a look at what she's done for this season?
Definitely.
What if she's done no print?
That's never going to happen. It'll be a sad day.
Can't kill the goose, lays the golden egg.
So just to give you a bit of background on this season, her inspiration is footwear, and she's kind of done 3 different collections in one, so we're in for an extra special treat. So she's moved through different footwear as the collection goes along. So we start with sort of brogues and gentlemen's shoes, so you can see that in some of the pleating, and you can see that in the sort of punched look as if it's off the details of brogues. She then moves into more athletic shoes, and then towards the end, as we'll see, she does sort of luxury evening wear. And this is her second collaboration with Lesage, and that's kind of, you see that when we get to the evening wear. So I think there's kind of 3 distinct points to this collection. What do we think of that as an opening look? What's your first thought, Camilla?
Well, I mean, I think I think the first look is always the first impression, so it's got to be strong, and you know, it's an interesting palette to start off with. I like
quite autumnal to start
Yeah,
with.
it's quite an autumnal sort of hue for spring summer, but then again you've got all the flesh of the shoulders and above the knee. So I don't know, I think you know, it's good to see it moving. I think it looks like it's beautifully printed on the fabric.
You can see the brogue detail, the punch detail.
What I like about it is the placement of the lacing and the thing, because it's such a flattering placement of a print.
It almost echoes like a
Yes.
slit in the skirt.
Of the thing, and it's slimming. That placement of the eyelet and the lacings there, slimming. And lots of people, I think we must realize, after Miuccia Prada for her menswear did such a dark, somber palette for spring, summer, everybody has caught on and realized, well, actually, you can wear sort of dark colours because it looks more dynamic, it looks more individualistic.
I also just think, I don't know if you guys agree, but like, people don't, spring, summer, autumn, winter, it doesn't really
It doesn't
seem
matter
relevant
anymore.
you know?
No, it doesn't. This is the
doesn't.
whole thing. You know, we're living in, you know, the world is flat and it's international, and somewhere you go, you know, because if you go on a cruise to the North Pole, it ain't going to be that hot. And summer. And
So can I just say, Camilla and Marion are actually wearing the colours in that dress.
Yes.
Well done, ladies. So,
I didn't like to say we were the muses behind this collection.
Should we see the next look? I'm interested in some of these shapes, because to me that first shape was quite retro, you know, with that halter neck, and
It's brilliant print plasmon.
I like this as well. Again, look at where the belt on that buckle goes. It's again,
it seems to be the wit that we knew from her earlier.
and it's what she understands, I think, about what women will desire in order to provide them with print that's flattering and slimming. You know, because it's the things that women are most concerned about.
I think the models as well, they're a lot softer than they were last season
Yes.
as well.
Yes, they're
last
not-
season I remember them being so hard.
Black, the black bob.
And I like that it's a softer look.
That's the fringing you'll have on a golfing shoe, which is just genius. I mean, look at that. If the dress, and I mean, it's amazing if it's just a print of a fringe, and it would be amazing if you can then extrapolate upon that and do the fringing as a fringe on the dress. So, you know.
She has used ruffles to animate. You could see that from the... What's your take on this so far, Marion?
It's very clever.
Yeah.
I'm actually remaining to be convinced, because I don't think there's a woman in the world that wants to look like a theme.
Yeah.
So to me, this is Mary saying, you know, this is her stating her theme, and hopefully I want to see it becoming a bit more subtle, and I'm sure it will be. Those first three were very much, I'm taking my inspiration from shoes, and here is how skilled I am, but I'm waiting to see the
How
look
she
that's going
applies it.
But she's done pieces before that could have looked like they were part of a theme, like the dress that had the typewriter across the chest.
Yeah. Remember, you're not going to see that en masse. You're going to see one woman.
Yeah.
It's very rare you're going to go out. It wasn't like, it wasn't like the Prada dresses, where sometimes you went out and you saw 6 women wearing those Prada jewel dresses. I don't think you'd ever go out and encounter 2 women wearing this dress.
Not the
And
ones
with
we've
Mary,
seen
there's
so
always
far.
a huge commercial
Yeah.
collection. You know, that print will be whittled down to
Distilled.
beautiful t-shirts.
Yes.
It's
Because
interesting
already
actually
we
that
see
when-
it's becoming more like this. We're on look number 4, so
She's
already that's
distilling.
becoming more of a beautiful dress that happens to
That
be
is stunning
themed
as
around
well. Yeah.
shoes. Whereas the first 3, I'm not criticising them. I'm saying I don't think they're the looks that are going to pop when it comes to retail. And
But do you think that's part of her strength as well? As she's great at doing a show, isn't she?
Yeah.
She understands how to
showwoman.
play a show. I mean, it's a bit like writing a symphony, and she just started with a big bang of this is how I'm going to start, this is my intention, and now I'm going to show. You know, she just basically sort of like reaffirmed, okay, maybe whatever you thought of last season, but I know how to do prints better than anybody else, and now I'm going to just explain this journey.
And one thing she's done, which is great this season, she's got her hashtag for the collection for people to use on Twitter is Mary Katrantzou. And you know, she's very funny.
That's clever.
We were in her studio the other week, Neil and I, and we were talking to her head of special projects, and they were talking about how she just is loved online. Like her Facebook page has sort of 60,000 likes, and they were like, we don't quite understand why, and they said, people just seem to love it and they really identify. And I think there's such as much as there's wit on the clothing, there's kind of wit about her brand, like Mary Katrantzou.
Yeah.
It's funny, and
Absolutely.
And I think it's her face. She's so cute.
this is true. She is adorable.
Yeah, she's so cute.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like
this is becoming more the kind of Instagram look, isn't it? That we're going to see the girls that everyone blogs about outside the shows. I mean, unfortunately, the weather's too awful at the moment, so we're not really getting those. But maybe when we get to Milan and Paris, you know, those girls, you know, Taylor Tomasi Hill, those people that everyone photographs. This is one of those dresses that's going to work in that.
I like the racing back. I like the mixture between something heavily printed, because I love the basic. We all like the basics of a white tank, and it's ultra
That looks
sexy.
incredibly fresh.
Exactly, incredibly sexy. Carolina Herrera is the only one who does it like a ball gown and a crisp white shirt. Gianfranco Ferré, that was his oeuvre, and here Mary Katrantzou is taking that sort of a strapless dress with a huge black band with a racing tank top. And
I'm interested that 2 looks before this. Sorry, do you mind just skipping back? She also did. No, sorry. If you go back,
I like that.
But when she did this, that's appealing. If you think of, you know, as much as we mentioned those cool girls outside the shows, Mary's clients, a lot of them are older. A lot of them, you know, want something a bit more reserved. And I think something like that jacket, I can actually imagine being really successful.
And just a pair of black trousers, a black skirt, a black accordion pleated skirt.
So this is what I love as well about her prints, is that you don't really know that that's a shoe. Like for someone who doesn't know what's behind her inspiration for the show, you wouldn't know it was a shoe. It just looks like a really unique
hot print.
And I love as well that she doesn't, like, I don't know how she actually took the shoe apart and reworked it all, because you see the lace twice actually.
But then that's the genius of it, I think, because it's not just a print. I mean, because one of the things we keep forgetting, it was Sir Paul Smith who did fruit print in that photograph. It means many eons ago, and then it died. Nobody caught up with it. Remember, he did oranges, lemons. Those were his strong prints, but they were on menswear shirts. And now we've got a new generation of kids who are taking print, and as Mary Katrantzou has said, and taking print and not just being a print. Let's cut it up. Let's displace it. Let's blow it up.
I also think they embellish it. If you look at Peter Pilotto, if you look at Mary, it's so much more than a print, you know.
Yes, it's
Paul
an
Smith's
adornment.
holding his own though. You know, Paul Smith's show was earlier today, and there was the girl came towards us in the white shirt, which is so Paul Smith, and then when she was going back up the runway, it was printed with flowers on the back, which was lovely, because it was that moment of, oh, that's the other Paul Smith. And then the final look was lots of daffodils, you know, just very joyous.
Which is quite like what Mary's done there with that white tank, you know, it's that kind of, that disposition between something unexpected with
precious
something
and something, something everyday. Because I mean, remember the notion, it was one of the things that I thought about New York. It didn't fully represent a 21st century idiom of the way women dress in cities.
This is a full wardrobe, isn't it? You see the look before this, what we had there was like a little, that's a wardrobe. This is a proposition for a wardrobe. This isn't just cocktail dress.
And you can see that, you know, broken down into the 2 elements of that little skirt and the jacket. You can, you know, the thing that American Vogue do, the runway to reality. That's a real runway to reality. You can see where that's going to go.
Let's keep going.
I like this as well.
I think for me this is a kind of very cool runway piece. You can imagine this on the red carpet. I'm not sure if that shape would you want to, is that a look that you would want to shoot, because it seems a bit,
is it structured?
I
think it's a cocoon. I think but it looks like it's quite fluid actually.
It looks fluid. Let's see it.
I think what gives it the body and the volume is the fact that the white, because it's like so many shoes, men's brogues when they age. And if she's exploring the notion of men's brogues and old shoes, remember their colours, and brogues now are no longer just the black and brown. We've got greys and so many different colours. And then, you know, if a shoe's being worn and not polished, it will become scuffed and the leather just becomes white. So I think that's the clever thing.
I also think there's just a simpler clever thing to it, which is that it talks about it in the press release, to how, you know, you think of shoes as a fetish item, and I think that's what's quite funny about this, is it's kind of taking that, how obsessed you can get with your shoes, your favourite shoes, and putting that into...
And what I find what I like about it, it's funny that she's fetishizing men's shoes and not women's shoes.
Well, that was just the first section, because now we moved on to sportswear, so this is much more, and she's used everything from like Air Tex to, you know, I think she's getting really sort of
techno fancy.
Yeah, techno. What do you think of the notion of doing 3 collections in one? Do you like something like that, Camilla or Marion? Or Paul?
Commercially, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing now that we want something new all the time,
but
and
also,
especially with e-commerce, they want new drops all the time. So she can just, I write for a business magazine, so taking this from a business point of view, boy, this is clever.
Do you think she would do it as different drops?
Well, she could do, and it adapts to that, and it makes it incredibly easy for the retailer, whether we're talking a bricks and mortar department store that can keep having this thrill every few weeks, or whether it's an online boutique. She's smart.
You don't think there's any part of it? I guess Mary is more established than this that could confuse her shopper, because there's,
shoppers now are pretty smart.
Yes, they're savvy, incredibly savvy.
Because this looks very, very different to the opening section. I think that's brilliant. It's incredibly refreshing. But if I was wearing this and Camilla was wearing a look from the first section, you wouldn't say that we're wearing looks from the same show. But maybe that's her being really successful. There's
also that really clever thing. Sorry to butt in again, but when the magazines, in whatever form they are, print or online now, when they break up the looks of, let's say, floral or dark, so she can get every trend, something in everything.
And I mean, at the end of the day, too, remember, everybody's complaining of 10 collections a year. It's just not feasible for everyone. So here she has like a spring, summer, fall, winter resort, right? All in one collection. And then sometimes you do have 3 different themes when designing a collection, and you hope there's a thread or a theme that keeps it together.
What do we think of this sportier section? What's your thoughts on this, Paul?
I think it's a lot. It's more fun than the
feels
first.
Younger.
It feels funner. But I think as well, thinking about the 3 different sections and 3 different looks from the collection, I think it's important to look at each look as an individual when looking at her collection, because none of the shapes that we've been seeing have been repeated except for that one dress, the razorback dress. And everything else has been quite a new shape each time, which I think it only helps when you look at the prints and the different prints.
I think that's a really good point actually about the shapes, because one thing that I'm really excited by with this collection, because it's almost like it makes you realise how wonderful Mary is, because every look is a different shape. She's done 3 different sections. This could be so confusing as a collection. You could look at it and be like, what is going on? But as you say, it's Mary. It's like what you said about Diane von Furstenberg. You look at it and you're like, this is Mary. And it feels so obviously her that actually, it doesn't matter how diverse it is, it makes it brilliant rather than confusing. What's your take, Camilla?
Well, I was thinking she obviously did really careful fittings for when she was putting the looks together, because she's dressed the girls. She's not placed a girl in a look because they're number 7 on the runway. She's placed a girl in a look that suits their body type. And I think that that's one of her strengths as a designer, that she designs for different bodies. She doesn't say, this is the Mary's body shape, jump on in. It isn't. Sometimes you see people squeezing themselves into all kinds of contortions to wear the latest groovy thing, and I think she really celebrates different body shapes. And I think that this collection, as Paul was saying, it isn't the sort of the same shape. You don't go away and say, oh, it's all about nipped in waist, because there are enough options there. I think it's a very commercial way of doing it.
That's amazing. And I love how she's using print to suggest silhouette, like we talked about that with the lacing, but even just that line under the bust is incredibly flattering in terms of the waist.
And just the way it's cut up by the armpit as well.
This feels like, I love last season, so I don't mean this as a criticism, but this feels like Mary's back, but she hasn't gone anywhere.
No, she's never gone. She's just, I think she's
lovely.
gaining so much confidence, and I think that's, who knows, probably great sales, and but it's because she's always been quite confident about what she's doing.
We're getting into the third section.
Quite different.
So this third section.
This is the Lesage.
So this is inspired by evening footwear, so much more sort of decorative footwear. Whereas before we were seeing, like Velcro straps and stuff that was a lot more kind of, sportswear. So here she's looking at sort of heritage and embroidery, and then again she's worked with Lesage for the second time. And she's looked at pieces from Lesage's archive, and she's blown them up by like 200% and stuff like that. So as we said with Mary, there's such a story, as you said, Paul. I think that was a lovely way of saying it.
And I think this, even just seeing this look as well, it shows how she's developed that throughout this collection. Like at first you've got a brogue in your face, and then you've got a little hint of a sports shoe, and now you've just got that, which isn't so much like in the story of shoes or whatever, but now you've seen the actual story, and so now you understand this a lot more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a really good point, actually. Shoes, like those opening looks were like, I'm doing shoes, but actually we know this is shoes, but if you saw that, you'd have no idea that that was from a dress shoe, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That shape is also, it reminds me, you know, that Empire line. It's kind of Heritage Mary. It's very iconic for what she does.
And the
but it
baby
feels
doll.
new.
Yes.
What do you think of this bit, Marion? You're smiling.
No, I think she's delightful, and she's delighting me in all ways. Like on one side, because it is so optimistic and gorgeous, but I am sitting here thinking from the Australian Financial Review kind of story going, God, this woman's just on the money. I'm actually sitting here being incredibly commercial, unashamedly commercial, looking and going, yeah, you can see it in store, you can see it selling, you can see the girls running across the Tuileries in their super high shoes and a little bit of Mary. I mean, it's hitting all the points, and it's so sophisticated, and it also that thing that still hangs over from London, that people who don't come to London all the time think that it's trailing hemlines or it's not finished, or
whereas this is incredible.
You know, look, this is gorgeous. So
it just feels like so much more dynamic than anything you'd see anywhere else. You know, it's so. She's such a tour de force, Mary, though, isn't she? I think that's why I love to see her, because it does show that London, you know, it can be incredibly optimistic, but it doesn't lose its creativity. And I think sometimes the more optimistic and commercial you become, it's interesting we mentioned Paul Smith in this, you kind of lose the sense that you're really creative. But I think what everyone across London, Paul Smith and Mary, are doing is showing that actually you can be really creative while also being really happy and cheery and optimistic.
Well, also youthful as well as commercial.
Yeah.
You don't have to sort of wear daddy's suit. I like these dresses. I think they've got a real young vibe to them. I love the textures and what Lesage has done with her.
Well, some of the textures, like she's used as many as 28 different fabrics in a single dress. You know, this is, I want to go and look at all of this and try it all on. It looks, I think you'd miss it wherever you were, whether you were on the runway or whether you were, I think it's one of those things where...
I know. Le Croix, darling, Le Croix.
Well, you can see
why not, really? Because maybe, you know, with Le Croix himself now back in a way that he feels comfortable with, you know, not designing commercially, there is that gap. You know, when he first appeared, and it was just so fantastic.
Maximalist, yes.
I hadn't thought of her as really being in the same niche, is probably the wrong word, but you know, in the same thing as him. But looking
I've always thought of her as that, as I said, you know, and that's what her prince aspired to. Her prince always aspired to a three-dimensional surface decoration.
But I don't think she is just print. I think it's so... Like, this is more structure. I think the problem is her prints are almost too good. Like, we've known them all for...
I think it's easy to be distracted by her beautiful prints, but then you can see the construction and the shapes are actually really cleverly cut. And I think that it's,
like that as well.
You know, it's a sign of a clever designer when you can just say you like the prints and sort of almost neglect how clever the cutting is. When you make a cut look easy, it's quite a skill.
I think the fact it's really interesting you said easy, because I think that's something that every piece in this collection, despite being so embellished, so ornate, so structured, they all look easy. And I think maybe this goes back to what you said, Paul, about the casting. It's really, really clever. The girls just look really... And she's used quite a few older models in this, which I think, again, is really lovely.
Well, it's accessible, isn't it? Because it could be like a busy nightmare, but it's really fun and beautiful.
Can we just stay on that closing look for it? What do we think of this as the last? I like the way she did that white tank again, because that's
but she's kind of taken it back down again for that last bit, which is nice. I think in the past we'd probably have looked at someone like Mary and gone, oh, she should get a job at the haute couture. And now when basically none of us care that much about haute couture, because, you know, only 4 people can afford it, now we sort of want her to just do this and keep doing it better and better, and hopefully stay here. but hopefully stay in London.
Yeah, absolutely.
That old arc that you had to go somewhere else to be a London designer that mattered.
Absolutely. Well, I think it will definitely result because designers like this, because designers like Christopher Bailey have returned, but Paul Smith as well returning, recognizing, Margaret Howell, whereby you stay in London, you keep on doing what you do. I mean, because when you think of Margaret Howell and Jill Sander, it's more or less of the same ilk, and they are relentless in one particular idiom, and they stick to it, and they hone it, and they perfect it. And I think this is what Mary Katrantzou is doing for us again this season. Lesage, because again she was sort of taking that flat surface print and now she's piling on the detail, and then of course going to master technicians like Lesage, it can only result in something sort of so breathtaking.
She's a gift for him though, isn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, in that
exactly.
atelier, which, there must be moments at Lesage where they go, oh, this again.
Yeah.
So it must be gorgeous for them
But also
to have
it's such a, people often, haute couture, and people say, why isn't it relevant anymore, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. But to see, and that's always the reason they give, it's like the craftsmanship, and it's to champion these ancient ateliers. But to see someone in London, really young, fresh out of St Martin's, sort of however many years ago, using those ancient ateliers, that's really exciting, because that's kind of a future for them. You think, imagine Medium Kirchhoff using the side. It's me really exciting.
Exactly.
Just break it apart and
redevelop. Recontextualize. But I think it's like what any good craftsman would do. You would always look to the arts and the techniques of the past and see what you can do to make them your own, right? Remember, they're simply tools, whether it be tailoring, whether it's haute couture, everything by hand. You're constantly using all the tools at your disposal to come up with something fantastic.
But Mary just seems to do it better than everyone else. So there are lots of people in London who do print. Some of them do it absolutely beautifully, like Holly Fulton's collection. I thought this season was absolutely stunning. Yeah. And we've got Peter Pilotto. But why is Mary just better than the rest?
Well, I suppose she does a lot of research. It's not nothing's accidental there, and I think she does, she does a lot of research, and she works with the best. She works with Lesage. She really researches it, but she also isn't precious with it and has fun with it.
I think as well, like a lot of her looks, women would want to buy them and want to wear them, and you can just chuck that on and just feel amazing in it.
Although it's luxe, it's accessible.
So it's it is fashion. It's very much, this isn't clothes, it's fashion, but it is also clothes in a brilliant way.
If I was on the street and saw a girl trying to catch a cab in that, I'd stop and look at her.
And you'd feel really jealous as well.
Well,
that's the greatest compliment you can say for clothes, Paul. I think that's a really lovely way of summing up this collection. If you saw a girl on the street hailing a cab, so we've got that visual in our heads. Of course, from a photographer. But we'd all go either, I want to be that girl, or I know I like that girl.
Or I want to go talk to her.
It's really...
Well, no one's going to top that, so should we round
Give
off
her
our
a
Mary
clap.
Katrantzou with a clap for our wonderful panel, Mary.